Okay guys, welcome back to the channel. This is going to be all about a barn find and what you think your old car in the backyard's worth. You might have got it from granddad, your dad, passed down, whatever, or you might have even brought it 10, 15 years ago and never want to do it. This is one of those cars. This is a one owner car. Took quite a bit to get this car off the guy, and I'm going to talk about prices, what it costs to actually just get this car running. Maybe then you'll be able to look at your the vehicle you've got in the backyard, and instead of putting it on marketplace for $1 million, start thinking about how much your vehicle is actually worth. So stay tuned and let's get into this car. Today we have a barn find. Let's go pick it up and evaluate what I've actually got. Keep watching. Okay, when you come to pick a car up, you usually always got to do, you got to move this, move that, with that, so you can get into this. And this is what we purchased. HZ station wagon. She does need a little bit of work. But the bases are there. Well, the video doesn't really show how steep that driveway was, but we had to try and push the car. It took about 5 of us to push it. Everything was locked up, the brakes were locked up, had to keep rocking it backwards and forwards. It was an absolute pain in the arse. So we ended up pulling it in about 2 or 3 different angles. We couldn't get the caravans moved because the tow hitch on the caravans a tiny little 30mm type ball setup. So the only car that had that, we couldn't get the other ball the tow ball off that car. So we're left with no choice but to manhandle this thing off, which probably took about 2 hours at this point in time just to get it all on the trailer and locked down. Righto. Son, I think you better get Mum because her new car's here. Oh, there she is. Okay, so the old girl is off the trailer. We have numerous amount of parts put in the back that Matt spent time finding. Look at the dust. And the headlining, which is just there as well. Let's keep going. So we purchased this car, and being a one owner and a complete vehicle, but you can see that people have been taking things off of it. I don't know whether it was Matt or his cousin or whoever it was, but at some stage a lot of things got pulled apart on this car and put in the shed. So even the seats and everything weren't even bolted in, they were all just sitting in there. The engine was out, transmission was out, all complete, but I soon found out there was a lot of nuts and bolts that were actually missing, and I've got to try and source the right ones. Well, that's after about 10 minutes of blowing and using the brush, which I haven't done that side because I don't want to hit this with water until I've blown everything off and dusted everything down first. Look how thick that is in there. That is extremely thick. Well, we've been on this car for a good hour and a half, 2 hours now. So those floors are perfect. Let's just keep cleaning. Been a murder up that end. A cat's murdered a pigeon by the looks of it. But the actual seats. So at this stage we've probably spent about 6 hours cleaning the dust out of this car. We still hadn't hit it with water at all. And that's before we even rolled it in the shed. So it was a whole day, wasted a whole day before we could even put it on the hoist and have a look to see what we've got. Righto, we've blown this car out as best we can with the dust. I tell you, there was a lot. 20 litre bucket, probably 3 or 4 times cleaned up mess in this car. But let's just sit back and have a look, see what we got. So we have a HJ Vacationer station wagon. It is a 4.2 T-bar auto, which means bucket seats. Power steering, air conditioned car. So, what's the body like? Well, I'm going to keep as much patina on this body as I possibly can. Car's got a dent in it. How do we go? How are we going for rust? Well, there's a little bit on the back driver's side, but that's bugger all. This passenger side is pretty sweet. Now that I've got the floor cleaned, check this out. Look at that, is pretty bloody good. That's just surface rust on that. That's bugger all. Right up. All inside the doors are really good. Then we've got all the back section. These are renowned for rusting out through there, but these not one bit. So, what do you reckon? So this is my only bit of rust that I can actually visually see. Bottom of that dog leg. And just starting in the door sill there. So, let's see how we go. And up she goes. So as we get it up on the hoist, I was quite pleasantly surprised on just how good this car was for rust. Look at that, rust free. Bottom of these guards. Right, couple 100 million redbacks in there, Shawnee. Might turn the light on. Look at that. That bottom of that radio support's nearly freaking perfect. These guards are still like brand new. It's just got dents in them. Look at this. This is like the sedan. I'm excited. There's no rust. Anyway, where I'm looking. Could do with getting rid of these spiders. Shawnee, I can't see any rust.
I can't see any either. I'm with the glasses.
It's old and wagon, mate. You shouldn't need glasses. I suppose the only thing we can do is rip these wheels off. Look at that. I'm calling it, that's as clean as the HJ. Oh, here we go. Just starting to come through here. Anyway, that's nothing. Another lucky one. So let's rip the diff out, the exhaust off, and start cleaning her up and get her prepped. Righto guys, the HJ wagon, I said I want to keep it as original as I possibly could, which is, look, I try my best to do that, but I'm just not quite sure whether I can or not. So let's see what happens. It would be nice. Okay, so what I'm just realised is that this car's been sitting for a long time in the dust, and did sit under a tree for a little while before he put it in the carport, and every single bolt, every single screw, every single nut so far has been nothing but a hassle. So I'm just running around, going to pre-soak everything with CRC before I even attempt to undo anything. Try and protect those threads as best that I possibly can. You know, I went over it with CRC 2 or 3 times. I reckon the car went up and down quite a fair bit, but just, you can see there I'm struggling just to get these brakes undone, and both sides were seized on. This is just the kind of thing that you get when you buy an old car that's been sitting for a while, and the majority of its life it's been sitting in a carport. So imagine you get one that's been sitting out in the paddock. These can become terrible, terrible things to try and get apart. You know, so you go to buy an absolute complete car and the price reflects a complete car, but how many of these parts can you actually use? I don't think a lot of people that are selling these cars realise just how hard it is to work on them and how many parts you do actually need to reco or replace just to get it done. So at this stage I realised, you know, it's going to take me forever to get this apart. I need to drop all the exhaust, the manifold, and work my way from the back so I can get access on the inside through the hoist. So the offending brake line is this one here at the bracket on the subframe. I just could not get it undone, and the passenger side was even worse, so we may have to even replace all the brake lines. So simple things like getting the calipers off was quite hard and seized on. One of my main worries was hoping that there was no water or damage on the spindles, because although you can buy them, it's going to be a pain. I live in Mildura, I've got to get postage for it, and pleasantly surprised when I pulled this one apart. They were pretty good. Most of this front end, I dare say, Matt took care of it. Matt, the previous owner, must have taken really good care of this car when he drove it. There was just inches of grease everywhere on everything. So a lot of things were protected. A lot of the bearings and everything were still perfect. Well, this car's done 270,000 kilometres, and they are original upper ball joints. I have not seen original upper ball joints on a H series Holden since I was about 19, 20 years old. So they're press stud, guys. They're not nut and bolt. You have to actually cut them off, and the replacement ones are nut and bolt. So very interesting. So I made a conscious decision not to hit this car with any water or any soaps whatsoever. So that meant I had to deal with the dust and the muck and everything and just clean everything off by hand as I went. And then I thought I'd sort it all out, individual parts as I keep going through it, which was, I just didn't want to turn the dust into mud and try and preserve everything as best I could, which added a bit to my work, but it was good. So almost every bolt that I was undoing, you get about 2 or 3 threads out of it and I had to wind it back in. If I could get a wire brush on it, I'd hit it with a wire brush, but it was just very time consuming just to take something simple off, like the sway bar at the front with all the dust and the mud that had been sitting on there for God knows how many years. And not to mention the dust that falls in your eyes as well when you touch the chassis or you touch anything else. But in hindsight, it worked out for the best, I reckon. Well, I got a little bit of a hangover, but I woke up early and I thought I'd get stuck on the front end. So got most of it pulled apart. Just got to take your time because all these bolts and screw nuts and everything are pretty hard to get off. So we'll continue on. I'll get that stripped off and then I can start rebuilding it. Well, those tie rod ends ended up being a little bit of work to get off. Took a lot of hitting, but now they're off. I can clean them up and replace them, but I haven't ordered the tie rod ends, so I'm going to have to wait till Monday for those, which doesn't matter because I want to get the bottom of the car painted, get all this off, get it all cleaned up, get the bottom of the car all prepped, and painted before any of this goes back on again anyway. So that'll give the parts time to come in. Keep going. Okay, so what I'm doing with the lower ball joints is I'm taking the nuts all the way off so I know that the threads are nice and clean. And then I put the nut back on, because if you don't get that nice and clean, when you start bashing it in here, you could damage the ball joint in there and you won't be able to undo the lock. So you're better off doing this now, and there's still pressure on that spring. That's why you want to put the nut back on, wind it down, because you know you can get that on and off easy now. Whereas before, if you tried taking that off, you may come up with the problem of this all that spinning and not being able to get the nut off, and then you're down to the point you've got to cut it out. So that's the way to do it. That's the way I find that's the best way to do it. Anyway, continue on. So to try and get these lower control arms separated from the ball joints proved quite difficult, and I had to change sizes a couple of times on the needle for smashing in there. But we eventually got it, and I used a bigger hammer. But it's just one of those things when you're starting to work on old cars. That was tight. So I released the spring, but what I should have done was kept the tool tight and then undone that lower control arm. Because of the swing, you can't get it out. The wife brought a coffee out, and I wound it back up and just dropped the whole lot together. So I'm just tidying these up very quickly with the wire brush. They're very dirty, just so I can start cutting all that off, and then I'll press these out and give it a paint. Well, that was a long 4 hours in the shed, 45 degrees, but the two topper control arms completely finished. All done in epoxy, new ball joints, new bushes. I'm lucky it's cooler tomorrow, because now I've got to do the lower ones. So cleaning all these parts down with a grinder and a wire brush was very time consuming. Would love to have had a sandblaster. Well, it's inevitable, but something I was hoping that I didn't have to rebuild were the brake calipers. But this brake caliper is so seized from sitting around. I've got it in the vise and it will not budge at all. I've actually, if you have a look down there, you can see the angle on that steel. There is that much torque on that. So a rebuild kit will have to be ordered. It's just one of those extra things, you know, when you're doing a barn find or a car rest day like this. You hope that these things you don't have to do. I mean, they're only cheap anyway, 180 bucks for the rebuild kit. It's neither here nor there, but it's the time and the effort that you've got to put into it. So I would have much preferred if those brakes were working, but because they're the original brakes on the car, I'm going to rebuild them. I won't get another set. I'll rebuild these ones and put them back on. Stay tuned. So I'll just go over this quickly, guys. We're going to push this bush out, and they come from this side out. Now, you need to put a crush tube in there, because these aren't designed to stay exactly straight, and if you go to try and push them out, you're going to end up bending it. So you need to put a crush tube in. It's quite difficult. These aren't the easiest things to be doing, and if you're restoring a car, they're probably overlooked, because you do need to have a press. You do need to make a few of these things, but if you look online, you can actually buy changeover ones, and I'm going to start doing changeover ones as well. So these will be completely painted, epoxy, with new bushes, new ball joints in them. That's what you want. Take yours off, bolt the new one back in. Make it convenient, make it easy, and start getting these old cars on the road again. Okay, we've got this. So what I'm effectively doing here is on this bigger rod is actually pushing down on this, and the pad is pushing up. So let's see how we go. So it's compressing the rubber at the moment. Now when you get a lot of pressure on it, it'll either pop out, just like that. Now if it doesn't pop like that, you just get a ball peen hammer, and if you tap it, not too hard, but just gently tap it like this, the shock wave and the pressure itself, it'll just pop. So that's done. I'll show you what we've got. And there it is. It's out. Okay. They're done. All the lowers. So I'm just waiting for that to dry off. And the tie rod ends. One of the last things I've got to clean up now. People will look at that and go, geez, you got a bit fussy with that. But anyway, they're raw steel, so I like to get a little bit of paint on them, but I don't want to absolutely destroy the whole lot. So paint the whole lot, I should say. Let's see how it goes. Keep going. Sway bar's done. Now we just got to do these brakes, get these brakes sorted out so this whole front end can go back together. But before we do that, I want to attack this engine bay. Pull everything out, tidy it up, prep seal it, probably just Scotch Brite this and neaten it all up. And I'm going to do the same with the inside the wheel arches and the chassis, get them all treated, and then do underneath later, probably Saturday or something, a couple of days time. But we're getting there, and it's not that far off going back on the wheels. We've just got to do the diff. The trailing arms have already been done. The bushes have already been pushed in them. I had a spare set, so they've already been done. I'll take the set that are off the diff at the moment, and I'll recay them and sit them on the bench anyway. So, and then I want to pull the tank out and change all the fuel lines over, all the rubber fuel lines and connections. I want to change the whole lot right the way through, so I never have to worry about it again. So let's keep going. So how far do you go preparing these cars, knowing very well that the bodywork is going to stay pretty much the same? All I want is all the running gear and everything really spot on, all underneath the car, spot on. So then when you've got all these dirty wheel arches and chassis and stuff like that. So this one's taken a bit of work, but I've almost got it bang on, almost ready for paint. So just a quick clean up, I thought. Well, I've been on that for an hour now, so an hour each side, that's not too bad. Keep at it anyway. So the underside of this car, I've only done half of it, only with a Scotch Brite, soapy water. That's it. That's all I'm using at the moment. I haven't put a hose on it. So what you're looking at now is about 2 hours worth of work, and I've probably got another 4 or 5 hours to go to get the rest of it done, but need to get the diff out and the tank. So I started undoing the brake lines, no worries, until I got to this point. So this one I've got loose, but the actual nut itself won't twist off the pipe. They're just locked together. So I might have to cut it and remake that side brake line. No drama. So the rear of the car was pretty much the same as the front of the car, like all the nuts and bolts and everything, trying to get them undone. It took a little bit of effort to get that actual diff out. Probably took me twice as long as what a normal one would, and it turned out quite hard to try and get it out on my own, so I just had to take my time and do things slowly and do them correctly. So after a little while, I managed to get it out and get it down on the ground. But and then on to the next one, drop the exhaust and start working on the tank, I guess. Righto. Well, that took a bit of getting out of. The everything was just dusted up, mudded up. Now I didn't end up cutting this brake line. What I did was I undid it from that end. So I took the bleeder out first, which is 7mm. So because it's 7mm, tells me that that's had a new slave cylinder put in there. So I took that out so I could get my specialised spanners on that, and I twisted the whole lot. So no need to make any more. Bushes and that look pretty good in the back of this car. They look really good actually. So she has got a rattle can rebuild. The reason why it's got a rattle can rebuild is because this is not the original diff out of that car. One of his mates swapped it over. Matty said yes, and apparently they swapped it over because of the diff ratios. Now I like the lower diff ratios. I'm glad it's not a 3.08 or whatever it was prior. It's a little bit lower. It gives me better highway cruising speed. But it's leaking like a sieve. So I'm not rectifying that right now. I'm going to get this all back in the car so I can get the car rolling. Quite an easy job to do whilst it's in the car. And I'll do the brakes as well. So another job that's quite easy while I'm doing it in the car. So let's get this all tidied up. Get that done hopefully by Sunday afternoon. That diff, all the suspension, everything's back in the car. Well, Sunday morning, it's going to be a big day today, but it is only 3 days away from Christmas Day, so I do have jobs to do around the house, but today I'm going to concentrate on this car most of the day. The tank is now out. Everything looks beautiful under there. I'll turn it around. So there's just, I was expecting to see something going on in here, but there is just absolutely, it's just, I don't know, perfect. Lucked it, I suppose. So today's task now is to get this shed tidied up a bit because there is just absolute crap. And it is just covered in dust, dirt and grease from taking everything off underneath this. Well, it's had its first Scotch-Brite, so I'm going to go over it with soapy water a couple of times and degrease it and get it clean. Hopefully it's dry by this afternoon. If it's not, tomorrow morning I'll paint it. But yeah, I'm running behind schedule just a little bit. Just want to get everything cleaned up. So I'm just Scotch-Briting this now with some soapy water. It's a dirty job. You just can't avoid getting water down your arm, and by the time I'd finished this I was soaking wet. It was quite a hard task, took a long time to do, but it was well worth doing it without using the hose first off. And yeah, it came up really well. I was very impressed with how these floors turned out, and they're going to paint up, rust treat and come up beautiful, I reckon. Back to the wire wheel again, and this I spent quite a few hours inside this engine bay to try and get everything pretty well smick. Well guys, it's just on 2:30. I'm going to have a beer, and it is just about me for the day. So progress for today, pretty much on schedule. I am a day behind because one of my son's friends was here and he broke his wrist, so I'm a little bit behind schedule, but doesn't matter. Christmas holidays, and this is what I'm up to, guys. So the whole lot of this has all been cleaned and Scotch-Brited and treated, and it's all been washed down, ready to go. I've got my paint ready, but I've got a visitor coming at 4 o'clock. I will video that, and that is Matt, the previous owner of this car. him and his wife want to come over and see what the progress is like. They don't live that far away. I think he's going to be a little bit shocked to see the state that his car's actually in and what it actually takes to get these old girls up and running, even just to keep them in the original patina, which is what this project's all about. But I want everything underneath to be brand new and drive like it did originally, which is what I'm going to achieve. It's pretty much a rust-free car. It's got a couple of little holes here and there, but you know, that's just common as far as no rust in the doors, no rust in the guards, no rust in the floors. It's just a really, really solid car. It's worth going over and treating everything underneath. Once I get that done and get it all bolted back up on the ground, sitting on its own feet, then I'll start on the interior and do that. So keep watching and see how we go. Righto, Matt's just rocked up. Young Matt. Kathy, bugger off. Sorry about the dog, Matt.
That's all right. Here I am to check out this machine.
Are you ready to see your vehicle?
Ready.
Righto. Let's go in. Come on in and have a look.
Okay. Nice to see the original plates on there.
Right. So she is totally stripped. She's ready to be etched, primed and painted tomorrow.
Question is, how you going to know what goes back where?
Oh, I've done a couple of them.
Wow. You know what I love?
What's that? No rust.
No holes in the floor.
Yes. So,
Okay.
and this is the
As
pile.
good as I thought.
Yep. There's the pile of throwaway. Well, don't throw them away. I keep them
Right.
because they're all original springs.
Yep.
There's all your front end.
Now that looks nice.
You like that? So they're all been recoated. All I've got to do is press the bushes in here and the
Yeah.
and the ball joint down there. But there you go.
Beautiful.
Any thoughts? Big
I
job.
like the yellow spring.
Okay, viewers. So Matt's been and gone, and he's had a look at the car. He was quite impressed with what was going on, and he actually did say to me that there's no rust in this car whatsoever. And without getting underneath and having a look, I had no idea, and neither did he really. So he was very impressed to see that there was none in there. So like and subscribe, because in the next episode we start getting some paint on her and we start putting everything back together and get her on her wheels, mate. And then we can start worrying about the interior. So the next episode for me is probably the most exciting part, because everything's there ready to start bolting back together, and you're actually on the uphill side of the battle. So keep watching, like, subscribe, and chuck as many comments in there as you possibly can, guys. Thanks for watching.